still a blend of sort of 5-6 hops, very Chinook and Eternum. There's a very nice piney sort of classic hop flavour. It's a bitter beer. It's, we don't let it drop under 55 to 60 IBUs. We've never softened it. It's never dropped in ABV.
Hello and welcome to the Beer Rep Chats With, and a happy new year to everyone. We hope you all had a lovely time over Christmas and celebrated New Year's Eve hard. Great to be back, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Dominic. He's a brewer at Thornbridge Brewery. Dominic, thanks for joining the show.
You're most welcome. Good to see you.
Yourself as well. Let's kick things off, with how you first got into brewing and what drew you into being a brewer as a career.
I suppose, I come from Blackburn, which is a brewing town. The town always smelt like a brewery because we have the big Thwaites Brewery there, which is sadly no longer there. But I always enjoyed going into a pub from the age of about 15, 18. So it was a lot of getting used to being sat with pints of bitter, and I loved the whole culture of being served a pint. And eventually, when I'd finished university, and I was running a bar in Manchester, and I enjoyed it, but I knew it wasn't quite for me. And the thing that I was really interested in was beer, so I thought I'd give it a shot. So so I applied to the 20 odd different breweries in Greater Manchester at the time, and eventually got a start at Marble Brewing. So that was 2005.
So you was doing a bit of homebrewing, I guess, before that, or?
No, never homebrewed. I'd been to visit Thwaites Brewery with my team at the brewery. We'd had a staff night out there, and I just fell in love with the whole, it just seemed so exciting and just full of possibilities, basically, at the time. So, and I just thought I'd start at the bottom and work my way up.
Awesome. So it's unusual for, brewers to start with no kind of homebrewing experience. So it just goes to show that you can take it on as a career without any kind of homebrewing back knowledge, like yourself.
Yeah, I think back then as well, there was the internet hadn't really got going with how good the Malt Miller is and the other online homebrewing shops. They weren't really around. So there was no liquid yeast packs. It was all just 3 or 4 different dried yeast packs, and the kit was pretty basic. And I just thought, well, if I can get in at a small 5-barrel, 10-barrel plant, work harder than everyone else, I'll eventually get a shot, and I'll just learn as quick as I can, basically, for whatever literature I could get hold of at the time. So,
and for your hard work, you was named Brewer of the Year at the British Guild of Beer Writers in 2024. That must have been a really huge thing for yourself. How does that recognition mean to you? What does it mean to you personally and professionally to get that award?
It was good fun. I'll say. The team had worked really hard with the union set, and we were balancing. We'd come out of a really difficult time in terms of inflation and coming out of COVID and the challenges that brought. And it was nice not for me really, just for the team to get some recognition for the hard work and the success of getting the union going, basically. I mean, Garrett Oliver did a lot of work getting us to the set, but we had to plan it and make it work. And it was nice to sort of get some recognition that we'd done that.
Yeah. What was it like working on the union set?
It was like being a new brewer again, scratching our heads and, right, let's see what happens if we do this sort of thing. So,
yeah, definitely. We'll talk about the union set a bit further down. But it's really interesting, and we definitely want to learn a bit more about it.
The thing about being a brewer, though, we're not a one-man band. There's a whole team of people who never get any recognition, like the accounts team who they bend over backwards to get my ingredients for me. There's the logistics team and there's never packaging supervisor of the year or anything like that. And those are the guys on the ground guys and girls on the ground doing the real hard work. So it's a bit sort of silly saying, brewer of the year. And I understand that it's nice to have a figurehead for the industry to sort of promote, but it was a team that really won that award in 2024. And
yeah.
I'll always accept that. So.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be great to be recognised as a team and a brewery as a whole for all the hard work you do, and everyone's involved in making the great beer that you guys do.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So obviously, someone you've seen, the craft beer world, or the beer world change over the last 2 decades or so. What's been the biggest shift that you've noticed, and what's been the most challenging?
So, funnily enough, when I started, there wasn't really craft beer knocking around. I always say, because there was only about 300, 400 breweries in the UK at the time, in 2005, and craft beer hadn't really got going. It was obviously going well in America. We could use American hops, but it wasn't really until sort of Thornbridge came along and had Jaipur. It's the higher ABVs, really. Everything was sort of 3.9 to 4.2. You probably have a 5% IPA that you didn't sell a lot of, and the odd winter strong ale, and that was about it. And it sort of normalised, people drinking, a 2/3 pint of a really good 7% IPA. That it just didn't happen back then, and that was a real nice change. That it doesn't have to be in a pint pot. It doesn't have to be 3.9%. That's the thing that really changed. But there was such growth a few years ago in the craft beer world when London finally latched on, and the Kernel was launched. It was such an exciting time, and it was a brewer's world. We could have picked and chosen any sort of brewery to work at the time. But things are really contracting now, and or they have contracted, and it's become quite a challenging environment again. So yeah, it's been like a wave that we've sort of ridden and coming out the other side of now.
Obviously, your access to market is becoming even more of a challenge as well. I mean, I know you guys. I remember when I worked in Wetherspoons years ago, Jaipur was always around. In Wetherspoons, how influential was having Jaipur in a big chain like Wetherspoons important?
It was definitely something that when I spoke to the directors, it's something they always wanted to happen. We would. When we first started bottling, we had the bottles in Waitrose and the cask in Wetherspoons, and it's sort of two ends of the sort of society, sort of the markets, really. And lots of free houses, but it's nice for everyone to be able to taste what we're doing, and it's not reserved for sort of a certain section of craft beer geeks or anything like that. We try and make beer for everyone, and Wetherspoons certainly provides us with that opportunity. I don't really go in Wetherspoons because in Chesterfield and the Peak District, we've just got some incredible free houses. And obviously we've got our tap room here in Bakewell as well. So, but there's lots of places in the country that don't have good free houses and good pubs, and Wetherspoons really sort of provides them with an opportunity for them to drink our beer. So, this year we've been doing up to 1,200 casks a week with Wetherspoons, and we scaled that back down again now to try and move the beer around a little bit more. But it was quite good fun at one point. I think we were in every Wetherspoons in the country at one point this year. So
yeah, definitely. Wherever I used to go, or it was always available when I was ordering it. And I used to work in Wetherspoons. It's going back about 4 years ago. I think I left Wetherspoons. I was with them for like 15 years, and I remember when Jaipur first came out, it was everyone was raging about it. Like, everyone was going crazy. This is amazing beer. When are you going to get Jaipur in? When are you going to get Jaipur in?
Yeah, well,
it was it's quite a high ABV beer as well. So
yeah, it must have been exciting for the customers. A nice change from the norm. So just as it was back in 2005, and we all tasted it for the first times.
Yeah, 100%. So what's your personal perspective on what beer that you brewed, and what you're most proud of? What beer are you most proud of that you've brewed at Thornbridge?
That's a good question. As production manager, I'm sort of proud of all of them. Sometimes our technical brewer will take the lead on beers, like the hazy stuff like Green Mountain and the hazy IPA specials. Sort of Rob, our head brewer, he'll take charge of a few. Couple of the union ones like the Dark Mild that we did with Garrett and the Burton Ale, I sort of looked after them. And last year and the year before, those were the ones that really got me out of bed and thinking, just how to absolutely nail it. But we make a lot of different beers here. We did sort of over 100 different beers in 24. I'm not entirely sure how many we did last year, but it's always probably the last one that we're most proud of. When I'm personally brewing, I always make sure I try and hit every single spec and everything's perfect for the next brewer to take over. So just to sort of set an example, but they're obviously a lot younger than me, a lot faster these days. So
whippersnappers. yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously, when I'm home brewing, you're proud of the the one that you brewed last, and then you want to go on to brew another beer, and if that turns out great, you're like, oh yeah, it's my new favourite beer. But then you go and brew another one, and it's just continuous. The more you brew, the last one's always seems to be the one that you're most proud of. Probably because you're kind of improving as a brewer on your skills and hitting your specs, like you said, so you become more proud of that beer.
Yeah,
than
I
you
remember
would
going
your first
to,
one.
I think it was a Craft Beer Co. Event in London years ago, and Mikkel from Mikkeler, he was sort of talking about his journey from home brewer to starting his business, and he said he started with a pale ale, and he just kept trying to make it better and better until he could basically improve it no more. And I really like that sort of attitude. It's not something we get a chance here. We're brewing 22, 24 times a week on the big kit here, 8 times a week on the smaller 10 barrels. There's not the opportunity to get things wrong really and experiment. We need to get it right first time. So,
do you not like have a small batch kit where you can do like test recipes and things?
Well, it's actually easy to do those sort of test recipes on the bigger kit because it's automated. We can dial everything in, and we know it so well. We're sort of dealing with a kit that we know inside out. We know exactly what mash temperatures and how fast everything's going to move around and what's going to happen when we add different hops. And, we've got a lot of that information stored in our brains and on paper anyway. So, yes, it is a different thing to sort of brewing on a smaller kit. And I just feel like if anyone could throw a beer style at us and would have a damn good shot at it from day one, basically. But that's taken 15 years of practice.
Yeah, and knowledge and working on the equipment and knowing it inside and out.
Yeah, exactly.
You know exactly what you're going to get. Yeah. So we talk about a bit about Thornbridge, the brewery as in itself. Yeah, it started in 2005.
Yep.
Was it that buildings at Thornbridge Hall, I believe?
Yeah, you moved sheds around the back.
Yeah, and you moved to your new unit in Riverside.
Yeah, so that happened in 2009. The chairman sold his gaskets company and sort of provided the boost so the team could open Riverside at the time. So I joined at the end of 2010, along with Rob Lovett, who came from, he was at Meantime, and then he'd set up Camden Brewery with Jasper. We were then joined 6 months later by Ben, who's now our technical brewer. And between the three of us, we just have as like a solid base in the brewing team. So Ben's really good at numbers, spreadsheets, keeping an eye on technical details. And so I look after a lot of the more people side of things and production and packaging. And Rob just sort of oversees everything. So between the three of us, we've just been able to build a really good brewing team time and time again, and just provide an environment where the brewers can just thrive, really. But Thornbridge has always been about good people. So over the years, we've added a brilliant logistics manager who's very clever. I remember when we added Simon Walkden, who's the COO, just made everything a lot more professional. Yeah, we just got some great people working here. I think that's the real key to the brewery's success.
Yeah, a good team and a good working environment.
Yeah, it's brilliant work. You don't work somewhere 15 years if it's toxic and horrible. So
exactly, yeah.
What we've done with the shift brewers a lot of the time is they'll get to a certain point where they can't really learn anymore. And it's then their time to move on. So we've got Will and Brad who've moved to Kirkstall, and various other brewers who've left us and moved on and gone on to be production managers and head brewers themselves. So almost like a training ground for people. And that's stepping stone. So say do 4 or 5 years at Thornbridge and then move on up above sort of thing. So
yeah, that's great. 2025 last year, marked your 20th anniversary.
Yeah.
Can you share a moment from that year that really encapsulates what Thornbridge means to you and the team?
Oh, that's a really good question because it was such a busy year, in terms of I think some of the meetings that we have on a Monday with the sales team and a couple of the key sort of the senior management, where we've sort of looked back on some of the old recipes and brought them back, and just things like Killy Darlings, the old Vienna lager. It was so nice to bring those back and see them, and having some of the younger team, some of the packaging team, and some of the younger brewers who've never tasted Vienna lager, and B didn't taste it the first time around. Anyway, and go, what's this? This is a great beer. It says, we've got a hell of a back catalogue, and it was just really nice to celebrate it. It was just some of those moments that felt really nice, and made us proud to be here. So.
Yeah. So when you're developing new beers, what's your start point? Where do you go from? Is it you want to capture the flavour, or do you go with style first, or is it like your ingredients?
Sometimes it can be sales led when we want this style of beer produced to this ABV. Get on with it, and we'll just go and bang our heads together, see what we've got, see what the brewing team want to make. Other times it can be a list of 12 different beers for the year that we want to do on keg and just release one each month. And then we'll go to the brewing team and say, right, what guys, what do you want to make? And they'll come back with some ideas, and we'll then go back and discuss them, get the brewer to put together a recipe, and then we'll tweak it if we feel it needs tweaking, basically. If that makes sense. It's not usually ingredients led, because we can get hold of pretty much anything. We have extensive hop contracts. Simpson's malt, we get Marisotta from those guys. We can get German malt, Belgian malt, anything we want, really. It's always about, we are quite style led as a brewery. But it's always about nailing that style to the very best of our abilities. So we don't want to take any compromises, making a lager and let's just use some pale malt rather than Pilsner malts.
Yeah.
I think,
do you ever use like experimental hops? The ones that that haven't been named and not been classed as a hop variant as yet.
Yeah, we've used pretty much everything. We've got such great relationships with our hop merchants that when they'll come and visit, they'll tell us about things that they've got in the pipeline. A lot of these new hop oils have been quite interesting to use. They've been absolute crap for years. They've always been associated with big family brewers saving money. But what we've found is using these newfangled hop oils that are a lot better quality than they've been in the past. But using them with hops, so combining them with T90 pellets and whole cone hops to get really good flavours. So we've not done a single hop brew for a while, but we've definitely started looking at all options in the hop oils as well.
Yeah. What stage do you use the hop oils?
You can add them at the end of boil, just before whirlpool. You can add them on casting. We often dry hop on casting, so we'll be casting beer into a tank, and we'll get the hops in at that point, so it's warm. And then traditionally we do our West Coast at sort of 12. We'll ferment the beer at 22, chill it down to 12 for maturation purposes, and at that point we can add some more dry hops and add these hop oils. So, they just give you some variability and some different options to use, basically.
Yeah, definitely. I've not used any hop oils yet, but I definitely would like to explore it, just to see what you can get out of it on a dry hop scale or on a whirlpools.
Well, we've got some samples here, so just come and visit us, and I'll fill you up.
I'll take some home. Go and raise your storage. Yeah. So you've done a collaboration project with Northern Monk called Jaipur Faith.
Yep.
How did that influence your approach to recipe development with that?
It's really interesting work, because they're a little bit bigger than us, and a bit younger as well. Really ambitious. I've known Brian for donkeys, like before he was a brewer. He's a really good old friend of mine. Really nice bloke. So we'd start with some emails saying, right, how are we going to do this? But it was more about, because Brian had been to Thornbridge quite a few times, but we'd never been to Northern Monks. It was about visiting those guys and seeing how they put together a beer, which is a slightly different way. They really nail hazy beers, probably, consistently. So it's they're great they can be great in the beer shop on, like their hop festival, or in the supermarkets. They are consistently brilliant at making hazy beers. So it was looking about how they did that, and so it was really interesting picking what is the essential parts of Faith as a beer, and same with Jaipur, and combining them into something that people are actually going to enjoy. And we just got brilliant feedback from both their version and what we did. I think it's something we're going to continue and have a bit of a spin on in the next 6 to 12 months as well. So,
yeah,
we like working with those guys.
Is it good to see when you visit other breweries and see how different they do things compared to yourselves, and the differences? Do you kind of take things back to the brewery and go, we could implement how they do things there and try and implement it into our brewery.
Even with small breweries,
Yeah.
we do a lot of collaborations. I think we did 23 last year, and I'm often the one who'll do the ones out, going to visit other breweries. I think I've dug more mash tuns out than anyone else in the industry.
You lucky man.
I just enjoy it. It's always nice to go and see. But even how, say, breweries like Salopian, how they've got a very big kit, big 60 barrel, and they make brilliant cask beers. How breweries like that approach their brewing. And I was at Brolly Brewing down for the Clabageddon project, and they're 2.5 barrel, which is a lot smaller. And I was saying, what time are we mashing in tomorrow? And I was like 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. Like, no, about 10:30's grand. It's totally different. But they're making fantastically hoppy beers, and anything that we can, how they're bringing those flavors out is always great people's brains. And, when people visit Thornbridge, we can give them a lot of technical help as well. So it's still a very friendly industry.
Yeah, 100%. So we touched on a bit about, the union system that you got in 2024. So, you rescued and installed it. Can you talk a bit about talk us through the system and how it differs from the modern kits that you use?
Yeah, so normally we'd ferment in a cylindroconical vessel, which you can pressurize or, will hold pressure. This is an open fermentation system. And before it was sort of brought into main use, you would have barrels on the floor. The beer would ferment out of them because they were used for fermentation vessels. And someone would wander around with a jug and top them up from beer they'd scooped off the floor or from a latrine. And it was very dirty. Beer was very poor quality. And this was, there was other systems like the union system in play, but this was eventually the model that became standard. So I'll try and explain the system. We move the beer down from the main brewery 150 meters down the road the day after we've brewed it. So it's about 14 to 16 hours afterwards. Goes into a receiving trough, which then fills the barrels because they're connected with side rods and they're in union. The beer ferments in the barrels. Any excess yeast sort of flies up with CO2 being produced, and that carries some wort, and that'll sit in the top trough above these barrels. The excess yeast will stay there, and the wort will slide back into the receiving trough, which then feeds the barrels. There's 6 150 gallon or 700 litre barrels in our system. So there's different concentrations and different of yeast, different temperatures in each barrel. So there's just that variance. It's a lot more difficult to control than the beer just being in. But the yeast seems.
I can imagine if the temperature's up and down.
Yeah, so there's some control that we have with sort of cold water in, sort of can flow through a copper insert in the barrel. It just feels a lot more hands-on than it does staring at a picture of a cylindroconical vessel on a computer screen.
Yeah, definitely. But it must be quite rewarding to do a brew on the union kit to do, because you're hands-on and it's more exciting, more manual, and just feels, I bet the rewards of it as well, when you make a really good beer from the kit, it can be quite satisfying, I'd imagine.
Yeah, sales have really let us lead on whatever we've made in it. They're not really, they know whatever we make is going to be, very sellable, and, they're not going to be able to keep it in stock at all. So, a couple of the beers that we developed, like the Union IPA, the British IPA, was a round robin, say this is going to really celebrate, the best of British brewing, and that sort of thing. And then we realized we needed to make a slightly lower gravity sort of beer. So we made the 1838, which was the year it was patented. And that's a really good English pale ale. But next month we've got Track coming. We're going to make an American brown.
Nice.
We've got various other collabs planned for this year. So it's all very exciting. And we're still learning about the different sort of flavors and character the union sort of brings. It's been somewhere for 15 years making beers like Jaipur time and time again. I wouldn't say it was boring, because brewing's always going to be more exciting than sitting in an office dealing with HR or whatever. But, you can get very familiar with it. And so it really did sort of wake us up again and sort of realize, there's more possibilities, different flavors, different beers we can make here. So it's been really challenging.
Yeah, definitely. Fun. Yeah. So obviously you mentioned about Track coming down to do a a brown in the new kit. Is there any other kind of experiments or styles of beer that you're going to be brewing after that?
It's difficult for me to say. I'm not sure I'm allowed to sort of reveal, but we've definitely got some very big names coming. I mean, we've had Theakston's, Fuller's, we had Garrett Oliver, we've had the Colonel, we've had Oakham, Burning Sky. We'll eventually get through every brewery, but we've definitely, we've got some small people coming and some bigger people coming, and we're just going to keep it interesting and keep pushing what we can do on it. So I'd love to tell you who else we've got coming, but I can't at the moment. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Well, we got Track. That's an exclusive, kind of.
Yeah,
so we'll go with that one. So obviously, we mentioned about brewing Jaipur. How has that defined Thornbridge? Since you first brewed it all those years ago, and why do you think it continues to be so successful?
Well, just thinking back to when I first tried it at the National Winter Ales Festival when I was brewing for Marble, one of the camera ladies, she thrust a glass of beer in my hand and said, "Try this, it's fantastic." And I was like, "Yeah, that is pretty, bitter, exciting beer. It was great." And I used to order the beer for the Marble Arch at the time, so we'd constantly be ordering Thornbridge beer in as our guests alongside 5 or 6 Marble beers. And Jaipur, we couldn't even get hold of it then. Sometimes they'd be like, "Oh no, we don't have any in." I'm like, "What are you talking about? How can you not have it in?" So, but we're making. That was when they owned the small kit, and obviously we got the bigger kit in 2009, and we're making more of it now than we ever were. Particularly for the Weatherspoons and for 500 ml, which is my favourite sort of version of it. I think we haven't changed the recipe. We really haven't. It's still a blend of sort of 5-6 hops. Very Chinook and Atarnum. That's a very nice, piney sort of classic hop flavour. It's a bitter beer. It's, we don't let it drop under 55 to 60 IBUs. We've never softened it. It's never dropped in ABV. The malt is a key to it as well. Really good local Amaris Otter. And I just think it still excites people when you see it on the bar. They say, "Oh, brilliant, they've got Jaipur on." And 5.9, you've drunk 3 pints of it. You really do. It's not something you can have a pint and then sort of drive, is it? So it's always like an occasion almost when Jaipur's on the bar. Even for us, even for the brewers, we still like to see it. So just never get bored of it. It's still an exciting, chunky beer. You can taste some American pale ales and they've obviously been softened and gone hazy or whatever, but I think we've got no plans to change it. It's bizarre that a 5.9% beer is such a big chunk of what we do.
And you've released a alcohol-free version as well?
Yeah, it was pretty challenging in terms of, because it's such a distinctive beer.
Yeah.
And we don't have a dealcoholization plant, so beers like the Naut Peculiar and the Ghost Ship, they're done on a dealcoholization plant where they just make the beer and send it down in the tanker and removes the alcohol. But we just don't have that opportunity, basically. So we're basically using like an arrested fermentation style. Trying to match the malt characters is difficult. We're making it bitter enough, letting it hold that sort of the alpha acids. But I think we were really getting there, actually. Alcohol-free, low-alcohol beers is not something that I personally do. I just have a lime and soda or a pint of Vimto at the bar or something. But it is a big thing for other people, so it's definitely something we're going to be doing more of.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's, for me, I think it's heading in the right direction with flavour and stuff, but it's very hard to get a beer that's known for, say, instance, for its big body, big hazy, big juicy style of beer. It's very hard to recreate that. And keep that body. Speaking to quite a few people, and body, like getting that body and mouthfeel in an alcohol-free beer is very, very hard. So when you've got alcohol-free lagers or bitters that are low in body and mouthfeel, it's a lot easier to recreate that recipe because the body and mouthfeel is quite low anyway. Yeah.
But you can see why that. I can see why you want a Jaipur, because it's got the brand and it's recognisable for people, so
definitely,
it's definitely something we're going to carry on working on.
Yeah, it's interesting. We'll be seeing how it develops over the course of 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
See how it improves. Might even be some new, new things come out, new ways of brewing an alcohol-free beer to make it easier.
Exactly, and things have moved on hugely in the last 3 or 4 years with different yeasts and all sorts. So
yeah, definitely. And if they keep that body of mouthfeel, that's the key for me.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So, is any upcoming releases or experimental projects that you can give us a bit of a teaser for this year? I know you mentioned track. That's one. Is there any more? You can do one more.
Well, I've just received an email whilst we've been talking from TNT. Our Italian chestnuts honey's arrived, so we've got we'll have a batch of Braccia coming out at some point this year. Not entirely sure when, but that's pretty exciting. What else have we got? We've got another full list of collabs to come. Trying to think who we've got coming up. We've got a batch of St. Petersburg that we've just fermented on the Union. That'll be released shortly. That's very exciting because we've not brewed that for a long time. So we're going to call it Imperial Stout now rather than St. Petersburg. When I first joined, the duty band changed, so it dropped from 7.7 to 7.4, but it's now back up at 7.7, so full strength. I didn't have any smoked malt, so I had to run to Red Willow Brewery and get a couple of bags the other day.
Raid their stock room.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, we'll definitely be having all sorts of fun things coming. We've got a full release of different keg beers. We've got an alt beer coming up shortly, so we've been talking to the guys at Zumuriga about how they put together an alt beer. So yeah, we've got all sorts coming up. Definitely still excited to be here, so it's great.
Awesome. Moving on to the final two questions. If there was a piece of brewing wisdom that you've picked up during your time at Thornbridge that you could pass on to a home brewer or even a shift brewer, what would that be?
Probably that it's very often, the recipe is only a small part of the success of a beer. Certainly when you start homebrewing, you realise that it's cleaning that's the most important part. And then before you even start changing the recipe for things. And that's even true at Thornbridge. We have to make sure that all the processes, we have a team of 7 brewers who all have to sing off the same hymn sheet and do everything exactly the same, so we get that consistency. And that's really important for us. The process is far more important than the recipe itself for a successful beer. And I just wish, making sure the yeast is healthy, the yeast pitch is consistent in terms of its volume. Those are the things that really change. And fermentation temperature and giving beer time to mature, that's also really important. Those are the bits that are more important than, what experimental hop you can get hold of. And that'll determine how successful your beer is time and time again.
Yeah, getting the basics right.
Absolutely. And just making sure you're consistent and try and really nail your process down. But not just the brewing day, but certainly fermentation and yeast health, making sure it's a good, viable crop of yeast. So these smack packs, the Y yeast, White Labs, they're just brilliant. They didn't exist. And I wish they had done a long time ago. Because it just provides the home brewers and small brewers is such a breadth of different beer styles they can make. So.
Yeah, definitely. And the beer that home brewers can make these days is just better than some commercial breweries these days. I mean, the kits that they even get to use is like quite amazing as well.
Absolutely. I'll tell you, we have a team of home brewers around here in the Midlands as well, and we often get sent samples, and they're like, don't suppose you mind sharing the recipe for that one, They know what they're doing,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's become really, really big home brewing in the last, I would say, 5 years or so. It's really picked up and improved. Last question before we shoot off. What excites you most about brewing beer today compared to when you first started?
I think it's just the breadth of different beers that we can make. It really is, Back at Marble, we used to make about 4 different beers, and we loved every one of them. We'd make it a cask ale, pale ale, a porter, and that was about it. And it would have to be a special occasion for a new beer to come out. Whereas now we can be brewing 3 or 4 different new beers a week, and they'll all disappear off the different markets where, we might make one for Norway or, one that just goes into a pub company or something like that. But it's still great to get your teeth around all these different recipes. We've got these series now where people can sign up for the cask and keg release of the year. So we've got to come up with 24 different beers anyway, and we're going to be selling big numbers, at least 150 to 200 of each, cask or keg. So that's still exciting. It's making sure that it runs like clockwork here at Thornbridge. Everyone knows what's going on. And if anyone's got any ideas, to get them into us and we can incorporate it. It's a big fun operation making beer here. It's a great job. I still wouldn't swap it for anywhere else. So
yeah, I couldn't imagine how good it'd be to work in a brewery, but it also is very, very hard work, especially your cleaning, keeping on top of things, making sure everything's consistent. That is what key to a successful brewery like yourselves. Is that consistency and getting everything right.
Yeah, I just think when people are paying money for beer, and it's not getting any cheaper, is it? So
it certainly isn't.
You don't want anyone to be disappointed. You want people to still be as excited as we are. So and that's what we owe them as our customers. So
yeah, definitely. Well, Dom, it's been absolutely amazing talking to you and learning a bit about Thornbridge and your past and how you got to where you are. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to tasting some new Thornbridge beers this year and the new Union Track collaboration. I definitely can't wait to try that brown ale when that comes out.
You're always welcome up here, so make sure you come and visit us.
I might even pop over. We never know. I have a little weekend trip away somewhere near Bakewell, and I'll definitely pop in.
District. It's great.
Yeah, I'll definitely be visiting at some point.
Right.
It's been great to have you on. We'll be stocking some of the Thornbridge beers on the Beer Rep store, so do have a look and check them out. And until our next episode, we'll catch you later. Thanks again for Dominic. Cheers.
Cheers.